Hello dear students, welcome again to online classes conducted by Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan, Jabalpur region. This is Komila Mirani, PGT English from Kendriya Vidyalaya number 3 Sagar. In today's English class, we shall deal with poem 2 of the textbook Flamingos. The name of the poem is An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, which has been written by Stephen Spender. You can see a few images that depict the life in slum areas. All of us know what are slums. Slums are those dwelling places which do not even have meager or minimum facilities that are required to sustain life. All of us have seen slum areas in cities, in towns. Mostly these areas can be found near the railway lines, in the outskirts of the city. Such areas are considered to be as blot on the life or on the name on civilization. This is also a picture of slum area which shows how miserable life is in slum areas. Now we talk about Stephen Spender, the poet. He was born in 1909, lived up to 1995. He was not only a poet but also an essayist who had great interest in politics. He declared himself as a socialist as well as a pacifist. You have to keep this in mind that he lived during the times when the world saw two world wars. Pacifists were people who worked for peace. His books, Poems of Dedication, The Creative Element, World Within World, these were famous. He came to be known for these books. The major themes that he dealt with in his writings were social injustice, inequalities, empathy, consideration for the downtrodden classes of the society. Now this is the poem, An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, page number 92 and 93 of your textbook Flamingo. Let's go through the poem once and then we shall deal with the explanation. Far, far from the gusty waves, these children's faces, like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their pallor. The tall girl with her weighed down head, the paper-seeming boy with rat's eyes, the stunted, unlucky heir of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnarled disease, his lesson from his desk. At the back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young. His eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game, in tree room other than this. On sour classroom walls, on sour cream walls, donations, Shakespeare's head, cloudless at dawn, civilized doom riding all cities, belled flowery Tyrolese valley, open-handed map awarding the world its world, and yet for these children, these windows, not this map, their world, where all their future is painted with a fog. A narrow street sealed in with a lead sky, far, far from rivers, capes and stars of words. Surely Shakespeare is wicked, the map a bad example, with ships and sun and love tempting them to steal, for lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes, from fog to endless night. On their slag heap, these children wear skins peeped through by bones and spectacles of steel, with mended glass, like bottle bits on stones. All of their time and space a foggy slum, so blot their maps with slums as big as doom. Unless governor, inspector, visitor, this map becomes their window, and these windows that shut upon their lives like catacombs break, oh break, till they break the town, and show the children to green fields, and make their world run azure on gold sands, and let their tongues run naked into books, the white and green leaves open, history theirs, whose language is the sun. So this is the poem. Let's have a quick glance at the rhyme scheme of the poem. As you can see, the poem has 4 stanzas. If you see the first stanza, the words at the line ends in the first stanza are faces, pallor, paper, air, disease, class, dream, this. As we can notice that none of these words or very few of these words rhyme with each other. Such poetry in which the words at line ends do not rhyme are known as poems in free verse or blank verse. So this poem does not have any rhyme scheme. It is written in free verse. Now we go through the first stanza in detail. The first stanza describes the children who are sitting in the elementary school classroom of a slum area. So what does this poem depict, or what is the description in this poem? It's about children in slum area, and that too children who are attending an elementary school classroom. Elementary means primary, basic. So what would be a slum area school be like? It would be like a normal school, only there would be some shortcomings in the infrastructure. After all, a school is a school. But as the poet says, that slum area schools are running in the name of school. They are just schools. They are not fulfilling the objective or the purpose for which they have been set up. Schools become all the more important in areas where poor people live, because their lives have to be improved. Change has to be brought in their lives. So schools should serve the purpose. Now, as you can see in the picture that I have pasted on the left side, a slum area child. See the condition of the child. If such children are attending the school, would they be able to concentrate on the studies? Would there be any great learning? Would schools be successful? So this is what the first stanza says. The poet is trying to show us the conditions of the children in the slum area schools. Far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their pallor. Far, far, the word has been repeated. Repetition is the poetic device that has been used here. Now, why has the poet repeated these words? To emphasize, to focus the difference in the children's faces and the object that has been used to differentiate. What object has been used? Gusty waves. What are gusty waves? Waves that are powerful. Waves that have got the power, the energy to influence the world, to change the world. Gusty, full of power. Now waves, they are considered as change makers. Waves are uncontrollable. So should be the children. Children are the future world. Children should be excited. They should be full of energy and excitement. They should be enthusiastic to learn. But what do we see here in this slum school? Children's faces are far removed from the gusty waves. So far from gusty waves, these children's faces, like rootless weeds, like there's a use of simile. Whenever we use like or as to compare, the poetic device or the figure of speech that is used is simile. So the poet has used simile to describe these children's faces. They have been compared to rootless weeds. Weeds, all of us know, they are already unwanted. So these children of slum areas, of poor sections of the society, they have been compared to weeds. That means they are unwanted in the society. And that too, a cruelty. What is a cruelty? They have been uprooted. Rootless plants that have been forcefully uprooted. So these children have been compared to weeds that are uncared for, that are unkempt, that are unwanted, and then they are rootless. Then the poet also uses visual image in this line. You can imagine in your mind the condition of these poor children. The hair torn round their pallor. Pallor, the word pallor means pale faces, unhealthy faces. So the children, this is the picture, the children are unhealthy, their faces are pale, they do not have any enthusiasm or excitement, and they are not fit to sit in the class. This is also an example of visual image. The tall girl with her weighed down head. Now the poet, he takes individual examples of children who are attending class in this slum school. There's a girl who has got a weighed down head. Now why is her head weighed down? Because she is not able to bear the burden of poverty. So she is tall, but she feels embarrassed because she is poor. It seems that she is not able to bear the burden of poverty. This is also an example of visual image. There is another boy in the class. The poet describes this boy, the paper seeming boy with rat's eyes. Paper seeming boy, metaphor. The boy is as thin as paper, as weak as paper. Now this boy has rat's eyes, eyes that are gleaming with hunger. Eternal hunger can be seen with rat's eyes, visual image. There is another boy in the class who is stunted. He is unlucky heir of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnarled disease, his lesson from the text. So this boy who is stunted, whose growth has been hampered because of some disease, undeveloped or underdeveloped. This stunted boy is unlucky, he is unfortunate. Why is he unfortunate? Because he has inherited a bad disease from his father. Now, most of the people, they feel proud that they inherit property from their parents. They inherit good culture from their parents. Now, this boy is unlucky in the sense that he has not inherited something good. Rather, he has inherited a disease from his father. And what is this disease? Gnarled disease. Gnarled means disease of knotted bones. Knotted. Knotted means where bones get twisted. Now when the bones get twisted, the body is not able to grow properly. So he is reciting. The word reciting, what does it say? That he is repeating. He is imitating the disease with which his father was suffering. And now he is also suffering from the same disease of twisted bones. So he is unlucky. Now, along with the disease that he has inherited from the father, he is also trying to recite the lesson sitting at his desk. So, more than the lesson, his concentration is on the disease. This boy who is sitting in the class, of course, he cannot concentrate on his lesson because all his attention is on the disease that he will be carrying throughout his life. It's beyond his control. He cannot do anything to cure himself of this disease. Next, there's another boy in the class. The poet says, he continues, at the back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young. His eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game. In tree room other than this. Now the class, there's something that describes the class. The class is dim. Class is dim, that means it's not well lighted. And when the class is not well lighted, naturally the children who are sitting at corners, at far ends, they would be unnoted, unattended. They would be neglected. No one would pay attention to them. Now, at the back of such dim class, there's a boy who is unattended to, but he is sweet and young. He is different from other children of the class. He seems to be healthy. He seems to be normal. He doesn't seem to have any health problem, physical problem. Of course, he belongs to the slum area. That's one thing. But he seems to be normal. Now, what is this child doing? What's the problem with this child? He is dreaming. He is lost in his imagination. He is physically present in the class but mentally absent. Now, what is he dreaming of? He is dreaming of a squirrel's game. Children are more interested in nature. Children are more interested in activities that they can involve themselves in. So he is not interested in attending the class, attending the lesson that's going on in the class. He is more interested in squirrel's game in a tree room. So he is physically present in the classroom, but he is mentally absent from here, and he is lost in imagination in a tree room. Tree room, tree holes where squirrels live. So he is imagining a tree room where he is playing a game with a squirrel. Other than this means he doesn't like this class. Now let's have a look at the difficult words in the first stanza. Gusty, I told you just now, gusty means very powerful, blowing strongly. You can see an image also, an image of gusty waves that I have brought for you. Rootless, that have been uprooted. Now a plant that is rootless, it is almost dead. It would be dead very soon. So these children's faces are like rootless weeds. That means they do not have any shine, any luster, any brightness, any sign of life on their faces. Weeds, useless wild plants. No one cares for them. They grow by themselves. They have to learn to survive by themselves. And what the people do? People want to remove away such plants as soon as they can. The sooner people get the opportunity to remove these plants, the sooner they do it. Pallor means pale faces, unhealthy faces. Stunted means not fully grown or undeveloped. I have also brought a picture which shows the child dreaming of a tree room where there is a squirrel's game. Now let's have a look at the poetic devices that have been used in the first stanza. Far, far. It's an example of repetition. Why has the poet used repetition? To lay stress, to emphasize that the children's faces, the children's condition, it's far removed from what they should be. Children's faces, they should be as energetic as gusty waves, but there is no relation, they are poles apart. Gusty waves, it's an image, sudden rush of strong wind that's full of energy and vigor. Children's faces are nowhere near gusty waves, they are lifeless. Then, like rootless weeds, I already told you that there is a use of simile in this phrase. There is also an image, a visual image. You can imagine plants that are uncared for and that have been uprooted, that have been left to die. So the children are unwanted, their hair is spread all around their faces, so hair spread around their pallor. It's again an example of visual image. Then there is a tall girl, a visual image. Tall girl, she is taller than the rest of the children in the class, but she is not able to hold her head high due to the burden of poverty. There is a paper seaming boy in the class, again a visual image, also an example of metaphor. What are metaphors? Metaphor is a poetic device or a figure of speech in which two far-fetched objects are compared without using like or as. So this paper seaming boy, it's an example of metaphor. Why has the poet used this phrase? To describe the thin and the weak boy. He is as thin as weak as paper. Now something more has been added to the description of this paper seaming boy. He has rat's eyes. Another example of metaphor. This expression indicates that there is eternal hunger, never ending hunger in the boy's eyes. His eyes show that he is hungry. His eyes are greedy. Perhaps that he has never had enough to eat. Now there is another boy in the class whose body is deformed. He is undeveloped. He does not have complete growth because of the disease that he has inherited from his father. The father's gnarled disease, if you remember from the stanza. He cannot stand straight. He is trying to recite the lesson from his seat. The father has passed on his disease to the boy, and now the boy has no control over it. He has to live with the disease throughout his life. Another point that is worthy to note is that the classroom is ill lit. It's not well lighted. It's dim classroom. Because the classroom is dull, it's dim, it's not well lighted. There's a boy who's sitting at the far end of the class. He is not noticeable. Unnoted, it's an antithesis between the sweet boy and the boys with rat's eyes. The boy's eyes are bright because they are dreaming. They are wandering out in the open. His mind is wandering out in the open. He is present in the class, sitting in the class, but his mind, his eyes, they are dreaming of something else. He is playing with squirrels in tree houses in his imagination, and this small dim classroom does not attract him. So what does the poet want to say? That real learning cannot happen in such an atmosphere, in such an environment. When the children are either ill or when the children are normal but they are uninterested, the environment fails to attract the children, no real learning can happen in such classrooms. Next we go on to the second stanza of the poem. The second stanza says, on sour cream walls donations, Shakespeare's head, cloudless at dawn, civilized doom riding all cities, belled flowery Tyrolese valley, open-handed map awarding the world its world. And yet for these children, these windows, not this map, their world, where all their future is painted with a fog. A narrow street sealed in with lead sky, far, far from rivers, capes and stars of words. Now the second stanza shows to us the classroom. In the first stanza, the poet described in general the children of the classroom, taking a few individual examples. In the second stanza, he takes us to the classroom, the infrastructure, the environment of the classroom. See, two things are necessary for a school. The first important thing is, of course, the stakeholders, that is the children. First of all, there should be children who should be interested to learn, who should be healthy, who should be in perfect shape of mind to grasp whatever is given to them. And the second important thing is the learning environment. Learning environment matters a lot, especially for small children. Therefore only we find that primary school classrooms, they are well decorated. All sorts of measures and efforts are made to make the classrooms as interesting, as colorful as possible. So what should be a children's classroom like? A children's classroom should be bright, it should be well lit, it should be decorated with those things that interest the children. Effort should be made to involve children into learning by through activities. Children learn a lot through by doing. So rather than showing them pictures of something, if the children are taken into the world where they can do it for themselves, see it for themselves, and then learn, that knowledge has a permanent imprint on their minds. Now the first line of the second stanza, it says sour cream walls. Now what is sour cream? This example, this sour cream, it's an example of image of taste. Cream, the milk cream, all of us know, cream is very tasty. But when this cream, it turns sour, we do not want to taste it. It's tasteless. So sour cream walls, that means tasteless walls. Now we don't taste the walls. But why has the poet used this image? To bring to us the idea that the walls are not interesting. The walls fail to attract the interest of the children. They are painted in dull color. So sour cream, it's dull cream color, and it is also an image of taste which tells us that they are completely tasteless. Now first thing, the walls are uninteresting, they are painted in dull colors. That's one negative thing from the classroom. Second thing is that the wall has been decorated with donations. On sour cream walls, donations. So the authorities, they have made efforts to arrange those things in the classroom that can aid learning. Like in our classrooms, we have charts, we have pictures, we have models, we have other different things which help in learning, which promote learning. This classroom of the elementary school of slum area, it is decorated using donations, means these things, they have not been purchased. The organizers have not seen whether these things will be able to attract the attention and interest of students or not. Whatever has been given as donation, that has been used to decorate the class as teaching aids. Now what are the things that the poet says have been used to decorate the class? Shakespeare's head. So there is a picture or a portrait which shows Shakespeare's face, the upper part of Shakespeare's body. Then there is a picture, a natural scenery which shows cloudless sky in the early morning when the sun is just about to rise. Then there are pictures in the classroom which shows civilization. Civilization means progress and development, which is ruling the cities. Dome. Domes are rounded structures. Rounded structures which are, this is an example of dome. The picture on my right side, on the right side of the slide, this is a dome. Now, what is this dome significant of? Dome is considered to be a very complex structure. Dome is a sign of civilization. It's a sign that human beings have moved and progressed a lot. They have been able to build structures, rounded structures on tops of buildings, which is considered to be very difficult. So civilized dome riding all cities means beautiful buildings that are ruling the cities, that are the attraction of the cities. So such pictures are shown in the classroom. Then there is a picture in the classroom which shows a scene of belled flowery Tyrolese Valley. Now Tyrolese Valley is a geographical location. Tyrol in Austria, in the mountains of Alps, is believed to be very beautiful. Belled flowery Tyrolese Valley. This valley is famous for bell-shaped flowers, which are a great feast to the eyes. People from all over the world visit this Tyrolese Valley in Austria, in the Alpine province, to entertain themselves, to see the beauty of nature. So a picture of this valley has been depicted in the class. Then there is an open-handed map hanging in the classroom. Open-handed map, a map which shows the generous picture of the world. Generous as opposed to small. The children's world is very small, it's very narrow. There is no generosity in this world, in the world of these slum children. Slum children are living a miserable life, full of poverty, hunger. There is no generosity in the world. But the map awarding the world its world. The world that is a gift of nature to human beings. That is something else. Now people have made boundaries in this world. Human boundaries have been made. And these boundaries are shown on the maps. So the poet says that these different decorations, these different teaching aids that are hanging on the classroom walls, they are not at all useful for such children. They do not belong to the real world of these slum children. Therefore, they don't mean anything to them. Let's talk about Shakespeare. Who was Shakespeare? He was a playwright. He was a dramatist. He was a poet of England who lived during the 16th century. His plays, his poetries are world famous. They keep on ruling the literary world even 4 centuries after he has passed away. But did Shakespeare do anything to bring betterment in the lives of slum children? No. Shakespeare was believed to be a poet of the elite classes, the royal classes, the powerful classes of the society. His plays, his writings, they depict love. They depict royal life. So he has written nothing or done nothing to bring empowerment for the poor sections of the society. So an example of Shakespeare in a poor children's class, it's completely meaningless. The second example is of a cloudless sky at dawn. Yes, this is the picture, the cloudless sky at dawn. It's very attractive to look. Now this picture is also meaningless for the children because These children live in narrow streets where the skies are not at all visible. And if at all they are visible, they are cloudy skies. Why cloudy? Why? Because their areas are polluted. They burn all sorts of things as fuels. Rubber, paper, plastic, all kinds of material that they find easily, that is burnt by them as fuel. So naturally the sky above their heads, it's not going to be cloudless. It's going to be a cloudy sky. It's going to be a polluted sky. So here in the last second line of the stanza, the poet says that these children's real world is a narrow street sealed in with a lead sky. Sealed means locked. The narrow street of the children, it doesn't carry a cloudless sky. It doesn't show a cloudless or a clear sky. It only shows a lead sky. Lead is a heavy metal, all of us know. And out of all the toxic gases, polluted gases that are harmful for the environment, lead dioxide is one of them. And since lead is a heavy metal, the gases that contain lead, that occupy the lowest layers in the atmosphere, and therefore the sky above the heads of these children in the slum areas, it's sealed with lead. Sealed with lead means there are only polluted heavy gases in their atmosphere. There is no cloudless sky. They never get to see the scene of cloudless sky at dawn in their real lives. Another picture that is shown in the classroom, on the classroom walls, is civilized doom riding all cities. Means there are pictures of beautiful buildings, sign of progress and civilization. But children don't have the chance to visit these places in reality. They are so poor that they never get the opportunity to go out of their areas. Similarly, Beld, Flowery, Tirelease Valley, it's beyond their reach. They have only seen poverty and hunger. They have seen heaps of garbage. They have seen dirty drains. They have seen dirty pools. Have they ever got a chance to see Beld, Flowery, Tirelease Valley? So a picture of these places is meaningless. It's useless for such children. Similarly, map is also useless because map shows that the world is very big. It's very generous. The map shows big places. It shows continents. It shows oceans. It shows mountains. It shows towns. It shows cities. But it never shows the slum areas. So the poet says that for these children, these windows are their map. Which windows? The windows of the classroom are the real map. Now, why are these windows the real map of the world for the children? Because it's through these windows where they see their real world. Through the classroom windows, the children can see their own slum areas, where there is only hunger and poverty, where there is nothing good. The future of these children, it's painted with a fog. Future painted with a fog means it's an example of visual image. The poet says that the future of these children is bleak. It's blurry. They cannot see into the future. There is no hope of betterment, of any improvement in these children's life, because their life, it's not what is shown on the walls of the classroom. It's only narrow street. There is nothing big as shown on the maps. It's only a narrow street that is covered with lead skies. So there is dirt, there is hunger, there is ill health, there is pollution. So their lives are foggy, their lives are bleak. It's far removed from rivers, from capes, and from stars of words. The poet continues the idea. Far, far, again use of repetition. So the rivers, the capes, and the loving words, stars of words, that means attractive words, that makes Shakespeare a perfect, beautiful, loved poet. These things are absent from the lives of the slum children. There is nothing as beautiful as rivers. Capes means high towers, high buildings, sign of civilization, and stars or words means the beautiful writings like those of Shakespeare. So, rivers, capes, and stars or words, they don't mean anything in the lives of children. If some change has to be brought in the lives of these children, they should be taken out of the four walls of the classroom. Pictures won't bring any difference in their lives. The difficult words that I have already dealt with. Sour means unpleasant, tasteless, unattractive, uninteresting. Donations means things that have been given as gifts, they are not chosen. Shakespeare head, a picture that shows the upper body of Shakespeare, the face and head of Shakespeare. Dawn means early morning, just before the sunrise. Belled means shaped in the form of a bell, a beautiful shape, belled flowers. Shakespeare's picture I have brought for you. This is the map of the world. This could be a valley. The walls, now the devices that have been used in the second stanza. The walls of the classroom are dirty yellow cream in color, like the color of the sour cream. Then sour cream walls, it's not a simile, it's a metaphor. Then the description of the things that have been put on the walls of the classroom. Probably they are donated, they have not been chosen considering the interest of the children. There is a picture of Shakespeare. His head in the picture is bald. There is a far-fetched image. It looks like the rising sun. Education is like rising sun. It's capable of spreading light in the lives just as sun spreads sunlight in the world. Shakespeare is considered to be a symbol of culture, education and intelligence all over the world. Tyrolese Valley, it's full of churches and flowers, beautiful creation of nature as well as human beings. There's a picture, there's a map of the world which is hanging in the class. Map is a metaphor. It's used to signify something, as I've already told you, generously sharing its knowledge. But these children, the world that is shown in the pictures or the decorations in the classroom, it's far removed from their real world. Their real world is what they see out of the classroom windows. They are trapped here. They have no freedom. And since they have no freedom, they have to live a life where their future is dim, it's hopeless, it's bleak, it's blurry. There is no hope for betterment. The poet has used a metaphor and a visual image in a narrow street sealed with a lead sky, where their future, which signifies that their future is limited. They have foundations in their life. Now, this is again an explanation which I have already described to you. All these images that have been shown in the classroom, the decorations in the classroom, they depict hope, but they are contrasted to the reality of slum environment. Now, what we have studied till now in today's class, a quick recap. The theme of this poem, the theme is of social injustice and inequalities. The poet depicts the pathetic and miserable life of elementary classroom in a slum area. The children have pale, lifeless faces. They have been compared to rootless weeds that are uncared for, unwanted. Their physical condition is very bad. An example is their disorderly hair that scattered around on their faces. The children sitting in the slum area classroom are depressed. They are oppressed with the burdens of life. So their heads are hanging down. They have hampered growth. These children, they are unfortunate because instead of inheriting something good from their parents, they inherited bad things like diseases that are incurable. Some children of the slum area, they do have dreams. It's not that all the children are unhealthy or they are in problems. Some children are there which are normal, who do have dreams, but then their dreams are limited because they don't have the freedom to cross the boundaries. So the child who is sitting at the end of the classroom, in the dim classroom, he's dreaming of a squirrel's game. He wishes to go out and play in the open, and then only he will learn. But then he is bound in a classroom, in the four walls of the classroom, and he doesn't have the freedom. The walls of the classroom, they are dirty, pale, they fail to attract the students. They are decorated with donations which are useless in the real life of these children. The children studying in these schools, they do not have any means to go and explore the world. Whatever they see through the classroom window is the real world. It's narrow street and it's the lead sky. So it's illness, death, disease, hunger, poverty. Shakespeare, the poet, in the next stanza, we'll see that he will say that Shakespeare is a wicked or a bad example, because as I already told you that Shakespeare wrote only for the rich and the elite classes of the society. He only described the beautiful world of the rich classes, and he thus tempts the children to do wrong, to steal. The map is of no interest to them because it does not reflect their real world. It never depicts the slum areas. Their lives, they start in darkness and they end in darkness. Now I have an example, a stanza for you with questions. I have taken this extract from the first stanza. The stunted, unlucky heir of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnarled disease, his lesson from the desk. Now, who is being referred to in the first two lines of the poem? So, what would the answer be? Yes, it would be a boy who's stunted, who has hampered growth, who's unfortunate because he has inherited the disease of knotted bones, twisted bones from his father. The second question is, explain the father's gnarled disease. This unlucky boy, he is carrying on the disease from which his father suffered, and this disease is of twisted or knotted bones. The third question is, who sits at the back of the dim class? So the answer is in the third and the fourth line of this stanza. So at the back of the dim class, there's a boy who's unattended to, who's neglected, but he's sweet and young. How is he different from others? Because he's sweet and young. The children who have been referred to in the previous lines, they have some or other sort of problem. Either they are ill, or they are unhealthy, or they do not have complete growth. This boy is sweet and young. Explain the line, his eyes live in a dream. So what does this line say? This line says that this boy who's sweet and young, he's lost in imagination, he's daydreaming. He's physically present in the class, but he is mentally absent because he is dreaming of a game in the world of nature, a game with a squirrel in a tree room. He is not at all interested in the classroom. Other shorter answer questions for practice. What is that these children inherit from their parents? So what would be the answer? These children inherit poverty, hunger, diseases from their parents. What does it signify? It signifies that they do not have any hope of good life. Education, opportunities of education, they are lent out to them, they are given to these children to make their lives better, but it doesn't seem that these opportunities are doing any good for them, because these children are bounded in the walls of in the four walls of the classroom. How has the poet described the color of the wall? So if you remember in the second stanza, the poet has described the color of the wall as sour cream. That means it's pale, it's uninteresting, it's tasteless, it's unpleasant. The poet has presented two different worlds. What are they? So in the second stanza, the poet has presented two different worlds. One is the real world of children, which is full of difficulties, and the other is the world of the rich, where there is progress, where there is development, where there is beauty, where there are all good attractive things of life. What picture of the slum children does the poet draw? Again, it's the same thing, that these slum children, they are ill, they are diseased, they are poor, they are undernourished, they are unhealthy, they have limited opportunities in life. Now I've got some sample questions for you with model answers. You can of course frame your own answers. These are merely hints. What does the poem describe? It describes elementary school classroom in a slum. Then how do the slum classroom children look? Pathetic, pale, sad faces, rootless weeds, lack proper nutrition. What image does Pender use to describe these children? He uses a visual image. Many examples are there. Why does the tall girl have a weighed down head? Because of poverty, because of misfortunes in her life. Then describe the paper seaming boy. You can see these model answers, sample answers. You can use them as hints and you can frame your own answers. Why is one boy referred to as unlucky heir of twisted bones? Then could be a question on the sweet unnoted boy. How is he different from others? Try to solve these questions. What things are used to decorate the slum classroom? What's the poet's comment on the future of these children? So it's painted with fog. If you remember, the poet says that the children's future is painted with fog. That means it's an uncertain, bleak, blurry future where there is no hope. The next question, how are the slum surroundings different from real world of the children? So read the first two stanzas of the poem thoroughly. Go through them. Prepare your own notes. Try to solve the questions. Last two stanzas of the poem we shall deal in the next class. Thank you all. Thank you very much.